we put that together. Today we have my special
Mm.
guest, Teresa Shanti. She is awesome. She's been on the show before, so definitely go and find her. This episode, we wanted to talk about narcissism, its effect on people, and Teresa's personal experience being in a relationship with a narcissist. And actually, really quick, how long were y'all together?
11 years.
Ooh. Oh man.
Yeah.
Ooh, so you really know. You're gonna know what you're talking about for sure.
I know what I'm talking about from an experiential point of view, and I feel like I want to say that and set the tone right from the start. I'm not an expert. There are a lot of people out there who study narcissism. They can speak about different terms. They understand like legal processes and all of those sorts of things. And I'm only coming as someone who is open around speaking about my experiences. Um, and I do it on purpose so that I can free other people. However, I'm not an expert. I'm just sharing what I've experienced, just to be clear on that. There's a lot of people who can school me, and your reaction, like, "Woo, 11 years." Yeah, because I had no idea I was involved with a narcissist. I didn't even understand the term narcissism until after I left, way after. When I met him, ironically, I met him on September 11th, 2002. And I'm a New Yorker. I met him on the 9/11 anniversary. Hello, signs.
Yeah.
And I got involved with him. This was before there was really so much access to all of this information that's out there now. The internet wasn't what it is now. I didn't know. So I'm also really learning as I go, like learning about it, learning what happened to me, learning the effects. And I just want to be clear about that. There's a lot of people out there who understand it from a different point of view. I'm just very willing to speak about my experiences. And as an intuitive and a woman, I can red flag a lot of stuff for others. That's
Yeah.
it.
I definitely appreciate that distinction. I think that's a fair point to bring up. I also think it's funny how you were saying there wasn't as much information available as before. Because now I feel like narcissism or calling somebody a narcissist has become way too widespread. And they're labeling people narcissists that most likely aren't narcissists. Like, oh, my ex cheated on me. He's a narcissist. Because I think people think narcissist means like asshole. And that's not the case. Like it's a totally different
Mhm.
specific thing. So I do want to start by talking about like what it actually is. So there's a Greek myth, also Roman. There's a lot of different ways
Mhm.
where it goes. I'm sure you're familiar.
Mhm.
And there was a
Mhm.
guy named Narcissus. And so long story short, he never really fell in love with anyone, wasn't interested in anyone. Then he saw his reflection in a pool of water and fell so in love with his own reflection, he ended up dying because he wouldn't leave that spot. And then of course his blood turned into the flower Narcissus. That's where we get the name for that flower. And where I guess we get the name for narcissism. I mean, I can't say that for sure, but I assume it
Mhm.
comes from
Mhm.
mythology. So
Mhm.
a narcissist, like the official definition, is a person who loves themselves above anything else.
Mm.
But
Interesting.
even that
Yeah.
word, like love themselves, I'm not really sure if I don't think that's love. I guess it's more of just like a self obsession and just a total disregard for other people.
Yeah. I think the key about that myth is that they were only seeing their own reflection. Narcissus is what I call him, but that might be incorrect, was only seeing his own reflection. So that has a lot to do with narcissism in that what narcissists do to people is they want them to be just like them, and or they want them to be in the image that they want to see, right? So if you want to talk about, well, some people say, oh, this person cheated on me, so they're a narcissist and everything like that. Like, I don't actually argue with anyone's experience. I'm not going to tell you ever, like, that person's not a narcissist. Maybe they are,
Mhm.
I mean, people might be throwing the term out like wantonly, but at the same time, I feel like it is important to identify toxic behaviors and things that you don't want in a relationship. But with narcissists, like, there are certain things, for example, one is total lack of accountability. So it's like they are unable to see anyone outside of themselves and therefore have a sense of empathy and therefore take accountability for their actions. And I think that's why their actions can become so extreme. It's like they're like, I don't understand. Like, um, I just think this is the way that you should be, right? Like, this is how I see you. I want you to be perfect like me, right? Like, this is what they're doing. So that falling in love with themselves, it's like it's not self-love, it's not falling in love like with another person. It's just almost like a tunnel vision. They're only able to see themselves and how they want to see you through that image. And they can't go past that.
Exactly. And I think it's like, and no, I do agree with you. Like, if somebody thinks that somebody's a narcissist, maybe I just mean like, yeah, it's used too like loosely and too often because I think that narcissism is a very specific archetype, I guess, if you could call it that. And I think it's way worse than if your ex was just, a jerk or whatever. Because a narcissist, like you said, it's like they want you to be a certain way. They want to present themselves a certain way. And I think a lot of that is control and like insane ego. What do you think about the theory that narcissists don't have souls?
Mm,
Just your opinion, I don't expect like
yeah, I don't really know, like, if I agree with that or if I think that that's even like a thing. I mean, in all honesty, I see narcissism as a quote disorder, just like any other disorder. So when they've studied narcissists' brains, I think they have found certain things like there's a part of the brain, maybe it's the cerebral cortex, maybe it's not. I don't remember what it was, but it's like larger. Like, it's actually the same. This is probably controversial for some people, but I'm going to say it anyway. And I have a child who's on the spectrum. I think it's the same thing as someone like being on the autism spectrum. It's just the way they're wired. They're not evil. They don't not have a soul. They're just wired this way. They say, like, for example, the difference between, say, an empath and a narcissist, and there is a connection in a relationship, is how the narcissists have met in their lives their own like trauma and tragedy, right? So I would say like a narcissist used it or uses it as a way to like harden themselves and see the world in like a sort of negative way. Whereas an empath has used it in a way to almost soften themselves and see it as a way to heal themselves and other people. It's just different paths, but I actually think that what's crazy about narcissists is like they are actually in general incredibly intuitive. They pick up on crazy details, and that's how they're able to control you. They almost know exactly like what are your weak points, and they can use it against you. Whereas like say us as healers, we can use that to help someone support themselves. They will make it so that, they're going to use it against you.
mhm.
They have like crazy spidey senses, and it's just they've gone about things in a different way. So the soul versus not soul thing, like, I don't want to say that. I want to say that I do feel like it's a possibility that they have opened themselves or they are open or something happened to them where they are exposed to like negative energy. I really literally looked into my ex's eyes one time and he had like slits like snake eyes. And I remember one time I was, this was years later, I was like taking a hike and they were talking about, the animals that were on the path and how to tell the difference between like a poisonous and non-poisonous snake. And it was like a poisonous snake's eyes were like, had like vertical
Mhm.
pupils. And that's what his eyes look like. And that was like crazy, right? But I would say that's not like that he doesn't have a soul, that's just like something has glommed onto him. Like maybe some energy, maybe some sort of spirit, maybe some reptile,
Yeah.
something like that. That was just an actual experience. And I had that before I was really spiritually focused. I just remember looking into his eyes and being like, holy cow, this person isn't there. But I don't think he doesn't have a soul.
Mhm. No, that's a really good response to that question. I also personally I think that it can be inherited. Like I think like for instance if obviously
Sure.
both your parents are narcissists, you're probably going to end up one. I do think that that's very common that you can inherit it. Um but it also makes sense you inherit like your parents or your family's karma, you inherit their traits. So it kind of makes sense that somewhere along the line if there's narcissism there will be narcissism again.
Yeah, and if you think about it as something like it could be how your brain and body is organized, just like there are people who are neurodiverse and within their families, there's also other neurodiverse people, it makes sense,
Mhm.
So I really actually, in all honesty, want to take like the evil stigma out of it. And at the same time, for those of us who have experienced narcissistic abuse, like simultaneously say, like, it was super effed up and we have a right to be sad, mad, angry, upset, frustrated, and everything. I just think it's an area in which we really don't understand enough at any level, scientifically, spiritually, whatever. But I just think if we make that person or that thing evil, it doesn't necessarily serve us. We just need to focus on the effect that it had on us. That's my
Mhm.
bend. I completely own the way this person has like destroyed my life. But at the same time, I don't want to spend energy like casting aversion on him or spending, my energy putting more negativity out into the world. It's like, in truth, as a humanist, I believe every single human deserves to be understood at some level. So, again, that's not how everybody will see it, but that's how I see it. Like, I don't hate this person, I don't spend my time hating on him. I'm just trying to heal from what he's done and who he is and how he's affected myself and how he's affected my children. But it's like, I don't want to keep giving it that energy, that negative energy. If there is something negative on him, then it is going to feed off of me giving it negative energy. So I'm not doing that.
Yeah. And I really respect your very like empathetic view on it because I think it's so much easier to just be like, oh, he's evil. They're all evil. You know what I mean? So it's very strong of you to be like an empathic and like emotionally mature to be able to be like, you know what? He's got issues. We all have issues. That doesn't make it okay, but they're still human. These empath or narcissists are still human. But I
Mhm.
would like to get more specifically into your story. So I know
Mhm.
you said that you met 9/11 2002. And so I'm guessing it started off that he was so amazing and just, was really intuitively knowing how to put his hook in you. But just share with me kind of how that process developed and I guess how quickly did things start to turn or when did the like red
Mhm.
flags kind of start?
Mhm. Yeah, well, when I met him, I was like instantly charmed. And that's one thing I want to say about narcissists is they can be very charming. And he was actually the father of one of my students. He wasn't married though, just to be clear. And it took a long time for me to date him. But when we started dating, he just rolled out the red carpet for me, I was young, he was older than me. He had money, he was more established, he had a house, he was a father, he had a good job. I was much more in a position of like starting out. And he just like was like, "Oh, I'll take you traveling, you know, um, I will pay your bills, we'll do all this great stuff together, this, that, the other thing." And then, it seemed great at first. This is the love bombing phase, that everyone talks about. And this is how, again, like you use the word like hook, it's right. Like he hooked me in. Incredibly charming, handsome, everything. And I I I went for it, hook, line, and sink. And then it just started happening, like he just started having like little problems with some of my behaviors. Like he didn't like that I smoked weed. He didn't like that I drank. He didn't like the number of people I'd been with sexually. He didn't like, then he started not liking like my friends because he thought that they were an influence on me, and then my family, and it just went on and on. So then what happened was I started like going like, okay, well, here I am, young, wanting this whole, thing, like white picket fence dream, then going, okay, well, I guess like I need to make some concessions, and I'll change my behaviors. I'll stop smoking weed. I'll stop hanging out with these people. I'll stop, whatever. But then the thing with the narcissist is like they're never happy. It's never good enough. So first it starts with like from one level of control. They kind of see how you respond, and then it's like a next level of control, and then it just keeps like going and going until you're like basically boxed into a corner, and or you're living like an entirely separate secret life from them. So I want to say it starts out as control. And like if you're with someone who is controlling you, that's a big red flag. Like, yes, in a relationship, you do need to adjust some of your behaviors or whatever if you want. But at the same time, like, you should still be allowed to be yourself. And if you can't be yourself and you feel scared and nervous about being yourself, that's a problem. So that's what started happening. And then it just like really progressed from there in like extremely, tragic ways, which became me becoming it it became me um friends from my family, and it also became physical. And just I was continuously constantly living walking on eggshells. I never knew like what was going to happen. I only knew that at some point I would make him mad, and that once I made him mad, like there was no extent, like there was no limit to how far he would go to punish me. So there are different levels of narcissism, and he was a violent narcissist, and that's like the heavy part,
Yeah.
right? Like that that actually happened. It started out as control, and it ended up like me literally fleeing for my life. And that is why I do what I do, and that's why I bring up these uncomfortable topics with people. I don't want to talk about this. I don't want people to know this about my life, but I have to share it because a lot of the like red flags we ignore in the beginning are things that actually become important later on. And like people say, like 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 4 women have experienced domestic violence. That is a fucking epidemic. And not only that, but like women actually die from this shit. And when I left because I really thought he was going to kill me. Not on purpose, but just that his level of anger had gotten to that point that he would go there. So it's like the reason why I started doing this intuitive work, the reason why I started doing all of this is because I want people to be able to tell what is the difference between a healthy relationship and a non-healthy relationship. And if it is unhealthy, get the fuck out. Don't do what I did. Like, I have to deal with continuous anxiety. I have to deal with PTSD. I have to deal with my children having to live with this person as a father. Like, this is not a cute love story. This is like a tragedy that I live with. And, it starts out great and then slowly it gets worse and then it doesn't get better. Like, that's one thing I want people to understand. It doesn't get better. Whatever I say about being, empathetic towards a narcissist, they don't change. They never change. Even if you leave them, they don't change. He's still a narcissist. He's still fucked up. He's still the same way. He is exactly the same way. Nothing has changed. They never change.
Yeah.
So,
And I appreciate you. You're just so strong, and I appreciate you telling us that. It's so crazy though the order that you went in, because years ago, from 18 years old to 20, I was dating a narcissist. So that's another thing too. I think people think the narcissists are, older people. Like a child can be a narcissist, a very young person can be a narcissist. And this person,
sure.
long story short, but he actually ended up getting me kicked out of my family's house, so then I had to live with him. So that was already the first level of control. But then the same thing as you, he said, you can't smoke weed, you can't drink. And then he went through my phone and was like, oh, I don't like this friend, I don't like this friend. Same thing. And I had to block my friends and be like, oh, yeah, you're right. Like, they must be bad influences. And I also just want to keep the peace. And then it would just progress from there to where it would be like, oh, I'm going to go spend the weekend with my parents. Then it's like, oh, why are you running away from me? Like, do you hate me? And then if you catch them cheating, it's like, oh, well, you're just crazy. It's not even like that. And I think the part that is the most traumatizing, aside from the physical aspect, like the abuse, is just the gaslighting. When you truly are questioning your reality and starting to think, am I crazy? That's the part that blows my mind with these kinds of people. To make me feel like I'm crazy when you're the one denying the actual objective truth. It's just, there's no words. It really blows my mind.
Hmm.
And I think that's the
Yeah,
most
totally. And
dangerous. I think that's one of the most dangerous parts of dealing with a narcissist, or even just a liar in general, the gaslighting. Being like, oh, the sky is green. And if you don't see green in the sky, then you're crazy.
Yeah, totally. And I think that that comes back to the lack of accountability and the lack of their ability to really see themselves. It's like they will tell you the story and they're also telling themselves the story. I mean, my ex has told my daughters that I abused him and that I'm also a liar and that I made all of it up. And that is a true story. That's what he has said. Even though I have scars, I have documentation, I have witnesses, and also, like, in general, I want to say, like, why would someone make this up? Why would I lie about this?
Yeah, there's nothing
But
you
that's
gain. You don't gain anything from
there's
that.
nothing. No, totally. But like he has actually said that to them. And I don't even know if that's what he believes. Like, is he totally blocked it out of his mind? Like, does he not remember like punching me and giving me black and blues? Because that's what he did. And he saw that. He saw the black and blues. I know he did. I had a, a black eye, and I remember going to work, and he was like, what are you gonna do about that? And I remember going to Sephora and buying super thick makeup, and it was like the saddest Sephora trip ever. but it was sort of like an understanding, like, I'm gonna do that. You punch me in the eye, and I'm gonna go to Sephora, and I'm gonna buy like stage makeup and cover it up. So, and yet at the same time, he still will look my daughter straight in the eye and say, "Your mom's a liar. Sorry, she's just a liar. I never did that. I don't know why she tells such lies, but she does."
Ugh, I
Which
just
is crazy,
it is so crazy, and it's just I'm not,
right?
like, laughing, but it's almost comical because it's like,
I
"What?
know,
Like, what
right?
are you
Totally.
talking about?" But so you had 2 daughters with him, correct?
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
growing up, how did that affect them, and how do you think it affects them today even though you're no longer together?
They have to do the same stuff that I, have had to do. Just be aware of how they present themselves to him continuously, and kind of know that they're always subject to his mood, his um mood may not be the right word, but just like that, the
Eggshell
variability of him.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Like walking on eggshells?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah. The eggshells, walking on eggshells, having to please him, not being able to really fully be themselves with
Mhm.
him. And so therefore, like what I've done is, um, I mean, that in and of itself has been like an entire just hardship and journey, like the hardest of my life, and just continuous stress and sadness of my children having to be in that situation. And it has sucked completely. I cannot sugarcoat that. Like, I can't say it's fine. It's not fine. It's never been fine. Um, However, like what I've done, excuse me, is I have tried to create like the safest space possible for them when they're with me, allowing them to fully be themselves with me, and being like, loose. I'm definitely like a quote cool mom.
Mhm.
I might not be as cool if I didn't have to be, but I know that they need that just to balance that out. So it's been a journey of just pain and discovery. Like there's no doubt about it. Just like none of it has been easy. I can't sit here and say it's been easy. And anybody who has children with a narcissist and or an abuser will understand that like there's a level of happiness in your life that you will never have again, just by means of having a child with this person. Like they as his children are subject to certain things. Like, I can move on and find another person, but they can't find another father, and that just fucking sucks. Like,
Yeah.
I keep my message and purpose is like to be able to just continuously find your light in all of the darkness, because like I've lived with continuous darkness. So
What do you think, helped you finally leave? Like, was there a friend who could help? Like, what happened?
um the abuse was getting worse and worse. So one of the patterns again is it starts out as control, and then the control, you know, increases, and the anger started increasing. Um the frequency of his outbursts started increasing. The intensity of his outbursts started increasing. My daughter, who was in kindergarten at the time, was starting to write about it in school and write about it like in our house. And she was saying, like, you know, Daddy got mad at Mama. Daddy threw the cup, and Daddy made Mama clean up the broken cup, and all of this stuff. And I started realizing it was registering to her, and the violence started increasing. And I started feeling like literally, if I didn't leave, that again, he was going to kill me because the way that he was physically abusing me was in such a way that like he was hitting me in the head and things like that, and that could have caused like a fatal blow. And I decided at that point that I would rather my children have a single mom than no mom. And I want to say this, I feel like this is really important because if one out of three or one out of four women are being abused, then there is somebody who's watching this who's being abused. Like, I made an exit plan. So I started documenting, I started taking pictures of the bruises. I started a separate email account where I emailed myself, so stuff was timestamped, and I talked about what was happening, and all of that stuff provided evidence for the future that I was actually being abused, and it wasn't like I just left. I also finally started talking to a few people about it. And one of the people that I started talking about it with was a lawyer she was a friend who happened to be a lawyer. And her and her husband gave me the first retainer. I couldn't set a retainer because it would alarm, my husband. And so I had made a promise to myself, like it was actually so Thanksgiving weekend of 2013. It was a long weekend. I knew long weekends were a time they were always a time where the abuse would happen, like weekends on weekends because we were together longer. And so prior to that, I had said, if he does anything physical to me, then I am going to the police. Um, that was the last time that he and each other, and that was when I left, and from that point on, it's just been court and divorce proceedings and all of that. But it was just I knew I had to leave for my children, so I didn't want to die. That's really what it came down to. It got to that level.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing. And I think you're right. I think people need to hear that because I think, just from the outside looking in, when you're in that situation, it might be so scary that you don't even know how to leave, or maybe you feel trapped or feel like you have no options. So that's a good idea. So document
Mhm.
it, talk to people. Um, and obviously the
Need an
police can
exit
help,
plan.
definitely. So I'm really glad that we were able to do this and talk about this. Is there anything else you'd want to say to any women or men who are dealing with a narcissist partner or, domestic violence?
Yeah, I want to say pay attention to red flags. Like, I would rather someone mistakenly call someone a narcissist and get out than not. Pay attention. Pay attention to what a person does to your nervous system. How do they make you feel? Do they allow you to be yourself fully with them? Do they give you a sense of calm or panic? Pay attention to all of that. If you feel like you are in a narcissistic and or abusive situation, there is support. Part of the gaslighting is making you feel trapped, making you feel like there aren't any options, but there is support. There's always someone. By the way, I'm here. Please reach out to me as well. There's always a way out. There are people who want to help you. You can get out. There is life on the other side. There is also love on the other side. I have experienced that. There is a full, like, beautiful, peaceful life ahead of you if you allow it. It's hard and there's a lot of healing, but you can do it. It can happen. You're not alone.
Yes, you're not alone. And I'm sure that there are also like hotline numbers that you can probably call to if you really don't have
Sure.
contact with other people. Um, but I think that this really made me want to like pray for people who are stuck in these situations because it is hard to get out, and it's even worse. Well, not worse. I don't want to compare anyone's experience, but if it is your parents who are also maybe inflicting that abuse, whether that's mental, emotional, physical, and it's sad, especially when
Yeah.
you are a small child, like you have no control. You can't leave. So especially if there are any
Yeah.
mothers and fathers, like take your kids and go, you know. Um
Take your
I
kids and go.
yeah, I
Yeah. And I, go ahead.
no, no, you go.
I want to say, like, I know it's not the same in every place in this country. I know that there are, or in the world, I know there are small towns where everyone knows each other and it's not necessarily the case. But for me, I was really lucky that my police force was really supportive. I know people a lot of times are down on police, people who work in law enforcement, but they actually really helped me. And unless you have extenuating circumstances, it's worth giving it a try because, like, they helped me. They actually helped me get out. Without them, I don't know that I would have gotten out. Um, and they're always available to you, and a hotline is always available to you. Like, part of the gaslighting is making you feel like you have no choice, but you do have a choice.
Mhm.
So take advantage of whatever resources are there. And if you are in a narcissistic and abusive situation, particularly if you are a parent, use the legal system to your full advantage and give yourself every cause for protection, every level and layer of protection that you possibly can. Do not kid yourself into thinking the narcissist and or the abuser is going to change. They are not. You need to protect yourself from them and just, if I could do anything over again, it would be that. Like, I thought he would change after I did this, like, legal battle with him, and he never changed, and I have suffered for that. So just don't believe they're going to change. Just do everything that you can to protect yourself and, like, get as much as possible. Truthfully.
That's very good advice because I think most people, especially people like us, we are very empathetic and we're like, you know what? Maybe they just are upset. Maybe they'll have some great spiritual awakening and it'll turn around. But you are right. That just doesn't happen if
No,
somebody truly is a
it
narcissist or
doesn't.
even just an abuser. You don't have to be a narcissist, but if you're an abuser, you're most likely 99% not going to change. So I think that's really good advice. And I just really admire you. I love you and I love your family.
Hmm.
And I'm just glad that you guys are on to better things.
Yeah, thank you. And we love you too. And thank you so much for this opportunity to speak freely about it and, to spread awareness. That's what I do. I want to do is to keep spreading this awareness and, uh, keep saving souls. So, yeah.
Yeah, and definitely, you guys, like she mentioned, do reach out to her if you need help with any of those topics that we've discussed. I'll have her information down below in the description box. But thank you again so much for being here, and I hope we do another episode sometime.
Yeah, anytime I'm here. Thank you.
All right, love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.